Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to talk about Barsk. Barsk is a science fiction novel, and it is, so it is a science fiction novel, and it is written by Lawrence Schoen. And Lawrence Schoen is a really interesting author. He's been working on his trade for a long time. Very interesting guy. He's a very interesting science fiction author. I think he's written other books. None of them have ever been widely distributed before Barsk. So, I do know a little bit about Lawrence Schoen, the author. So he lives in my backyard. He's a Philadelphia guy, and I live in Philadelphia, of course. And so each year I go to a little convention called PhilCon, which is the Philadelphia Science Fiction Convention. And it's really small. It's about 300 people, and it's almost like 200 people are science fiction authors, with maybe a few agents bouncing around, guys who buy content. It's a wonderful little convention. Gardner Dozoy, who is like an absolutely epic science fiction editor, actually attends. Mike Resnick. The guy who runs Lightspeed magazine has some representation. Arthur, their Clark's World, the guy who runs Clark's World. Some pretty big heavy hitters in the science fiction world, and definitely heavy hitters on the East Coast, in American East Coast, for science fiction. So the only reason I mention this is I've gotten to see Lawrence Schoen at these panels. He's a really nice guy. He really gives back to the science fiction community. He cares about the community. He really gives back. He's encouraging to new authors. He interacts with fans in a gracious way. He recently has upped his game with the Science Fiction Writers Association. The other thing is, of course, I follow him on Facebook, and so I see a lot of his posts. And I've talked to him once or twice. I've asked him some questions on panels, those kind of things. So I've had some interaction with him. And the other thing is, he really is supportive of other local authors, and just a really great guy. I think he's doing more with the SFWA. This year he had interactions with like John Hodgman, who's like, a celebrity, a celebrity, full stop there. He's been on a whole bunch of different shows, and I think he's even been in some movies. And so, so Lawrence is an up-and-comer in the science fiction world. And it's been really nice to see him working on his craft. And Barsk is like the penultimate, hey, I've arrived. So Barsk is like, I think it was Nebula or Hugo nominated. So it's an important science fiction novel, not locally, not nationally, but an internationally important science fiction novel being read by major outlets and reviewed by major outlets, television, television news coverage, book coverage, newspaper coverage, that kind of thing. So it's definitely arrived. It's definitely in that vein, and so pretty interesting. With that said, I was very excited to have read the book. So I finished Barsk, and by the way, spoilers all over this. So sorry, I should have said this earlier. If you want to know, if you don't want any spoilers, then the only thing this video is about is me talking about Lawrence Schoen for a couple minutes. So sorry about that. But spoilers all over, and every review I do has spoilers generally. So just be aware of that. All right. So Barsk, it is a science fiction book about uplifted elephants. So elephants that are anthropomorphic. So they have hands, and they can eat. They can, they talk. They walk upright. They have language. They have emotions. They use boats, and and all those kind of things. So the whole book is primarily the main animals that it deals with are elephants, and Barsk is the planet that elephants live on. Right, the entire universe of the Barsk novel is about uplifted animals. So there's an uplifted yak. So the creatures that have their own worlds in this. So think of it like a federation, almost like you would with Star Trek. And I can tell you right now, Lawrence Schoen is highly influenced by Star Trek. Not many science fiction authors are unaffected by Star Trek, but you could definitely see some Star Trek threads in this book. Didn't suffer at all for it, but, you know. So think of it as Federation, and then each world has its own, you know, each type of animal might have one or more worlds, right? And starfaring, they're all starfaring races, and all these animals can speak. So you have otters and yaks and what else is in there? You have the elephants and you know, all these different, you know, types of creatures, right? So you have these, and you know, they're all doing their thing. And so, but what happens is you really get shown Barsk, the world of Barsk, up close and personal. And it's like, hey, you know, these are what these elephants are about. This is what they do. And the elephants are very unusual. So all the uplifted animals are mammals, right? So no fish or like lizards, you know, cold blood. It's just mammals, right? So that's kind of interesting. And so we get to know the culture of the elephants. And the elephants are really backwards. They're not starfaring, so they don't have their own ships. And like, it almost seems like they're like turn of the century Earth. So like 1910, 1920, right? So they have a few machines. Maybe they have some computers, a little bit, not much. Their tech's really low. They have their own world, and really nobody but, they don't do a lot of trade. They don't trade with any of the other mammals. And the reason why is all the other mammals find the elephants kind of disgusting, right? So one, they consume a lot of food, and most of the other animals don't like how they eat their food. And then the other issue is they don't have fur, right? So animals are mammals that do not have fur, which is kind of weird, right, in the animal world. So it's really kind of interesting, right? So where does the book go from there? So it deals with 3 specific elephants. Pislo, who is an albino elephant, and Jorel, who is like a historian elephant, and Arlo. And Arlo, I'm going to talk about Arlo in a minute, right? Okay. So Pislo and Jorel are speakers, right? And who do they speak to? They speak to the dead, right? So that's one of the biggest concepts in this book. The elephants are able to speak to the dead. They use these things called nefshans. And nefshans are little tiny particles of memory. And so they use a drug that is created from plants that are on Barsk. And the elephants are able to use this drug and speak to dead people, right? So their entire culture is heavily impacted by this fact, right? So Arlo is a dead elephant that Jorel talks to, and he was like a mentor of Jorel. And then there's also a matriarch elephant who's also dead, and like was like the George Washington of Barsk culture. She just heavily impacted the entire culture. She impacted the history of the entire culture of the Barsk planet, right? So Pislo and Jorel are doing their thing on this world, and Jorel realizes that all the dead elephants who go to the elephant graveyard, and that, you know, that's something that happens when the old elephants get old, they just get a feeling, and it's like, okay, it's time to go to the graveyard, and then they go, right? Well, it's forbidden in elephant culture for anyone to go to the graveyard except if you've been called because you're about to die, right? And it's just like this internal calling, right? So he realizes that there's been a point like where for like 3 months he can't contact any of the elephants who went to the graveyard within the last 3 months, right? And he's like, whoa, that's weird, right? Now Pislo is like the son of one of his friends, and Pislo is like a crazy, super good. He's like a savant, like a savant, or I would even say Pislo is similar to being autistic, where like he's barely functioning. A lot of people don't want to deal with him because he's kind of like mentally challenged, but he's not. He's super intelligent, and he is an outrageously talented speaker. Like he can talk to the dead in a way that Jorel can't, right? So he tells Jor-El about this situation. Jor-El tells Pislow about this situation, and he says, "Hey, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna like research where all these dudes are, right?" So he researches and he goes to where all the elephants were, and what he found is that all of the elephants that went to the elephant graveyard, they have been picked up by the cheetahs and taken off in these spaceships, and they're all being and so there's cheetahs and bears and yaks, and there's this yak senator who has these spaceships, and he's snatching up all the elephants that are supposed to die, supposed to go to a graveyard and die, and he's asking them, saying, "Hey, where can I get this drug? I want to know how to produce this drug that lets people talk to the dead." And the reason why is the rest of the Federation, the planets in the Federation, we've found that there's some research which would have let us talk to the dead far back, more than 300-400 years, like thousands of years back. And also, and so it's saying, hey, you guys dabble with this drug, but we're about to use this drug in new and different and innovative ways, and your whole little deal needs to go away, because we got to do our thing, and we got to do our thing big time, and we need all the drug on your planet, right? Well, so at that point, Jor-El gets kidnapped, and then Pislow has to go rescue Jor-El, right? And all along, Jor-El is talking to Arlo, and Arlo, the dead font, they call them fonts, like elephant, the dead elephant, he's saying, "Hey, Jor-El, man, like, you don't even know, how dangerous this yak dude is, because he's got plans for this, for this drug that will change every planet in the universe, right? And it'll change the entire Federation. So you need to protect it, right?" And so that's where this book does get a little interesting, in that, I don't know, like there was some issues with the story. This is one of them. So one of the things is, like, so this yak, he has like entire fleets behind him, and Lawrence Schoen has said, "Hey, the elephants, they don't have much. Like, dude, they're a lot like the Native Americans. They don't have any real technology. They don't have any starships, right? So you have these spacefaring, real hardcore bad dudes up against this low-tech, almost like Amish people, and you're like, okay, well, how's this going to get resolved?" And so the yak actually gets Jor-El and Pislow, and he's like, give me all the drugs, give me the secrets to make the drugs. And it comes to a head, and they're like, "No, we ain't going to do that." And so a whole bunch of secrets come out at that point, because they're all talking back and forth, and then like Lawrence Schoen explains, like, the senator is dealing with all these other senators, and it comes out why he wants this drug. And the reason why he wants this drug is they figured out that they can talk to people tens of thousands of years in history, and if people can talk to dead people 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years back, what they're going to find is they will find why there are talking elephants, why there are talking cheetahs, why there are talking otters. And the reason why is mankind, human beings, studied language. And when they figured out the DNA of what allows us to speak and use language, they then put that into mammals and created mammals. And then that one piece of technology overturned their entire culture. There's big, huge wars over all the nations on Earth on how to treat animals that had been converted, right? And then it was, hey, here's the deal with, and it comes out that the animals killed human beings, killed them completely. There are none left. And so the only way to talk to them is to talk to them through the drug and talk to their dead humans, right? And so, like, there's this, and then the senators say, "Oh, well, Jor-El and Pislow are like, whoa, check out this big secret." And the senators are like, "This ain't really a secret for senators. Like, most of the public don't know this, but we all knew it," right? And so, there's kind of secrets on secrets. And then the way that the conflict is resolved, Jor-El and Pislow go, "We ain't giving you nothing, right? We're not going to tell you how to make this." And then Pislow, like, busts out this superpower, this, you know, Nefshon dead speaker superpower, and he takes all the Nefshons that deal with this yak, the enemy yak, and he gets rid of them and makes everyone forget that the yak ever existed. And that's how the conflict is resolved. This is an awesome book. You should absolutely read it. Okay, love it. Fantastic. Uplifted Animals, best I've seen since David Brin. Really cool book. Awesome. Double thumbs up. If I had more thumbs, I'd put them up. You know, without a doubt, this is a fantastic book. Now, one issue I had, I think this could have been a better book, and actually I'm really excited about continuing to read Lawrence Schoen books. But one of the issues that this book had is there's no action. There's just virtually no action, right? So that was challenging for me. Just as an action dude, I was like, where's the action, dude? And the way it was resolved was a little bit like, you know, I'm going to bust out this superpower that hasn't been talked about at all in the book. It was a little, you're like, I don't know. That was a little convenient the way that was resolved. If you got a dude who commands entire fleets and you're just like, well, I'll make everybody forget you. You're kind of like, I don't know. So like many great science fiction novels, the ending is a little like, I don't know. That, you know, it was a little, it was reaching, right? So, all right. Now, my only issue is I think Lawrence Schoen, this is a fantastic book. I definitely think it, you know, I think it's one of the best books I've read this year. I would vote for it for the Hugo. I would give it a Nebula. But you know, I do think he's still working on his craft as far as an ending. The ending was a little, you know, I don't know, it was a little teeth grinding. But other than that, fantastic book. And I'm excited to see Lawrence just working on his craft, you know, and so, you know, he'll definitely get there. Well, I mean, he's gotten there. Like, this is, you know, this is an achieved book. It is excellent, and I was very happy to see it. With that said, I highly recommend it, and I am extremely excited to see Lawrence Schoen's next book. Thank you.